Hello everybody, and welcome back to the Son of the Morning Comics channel, and we're going to do another classic comic review. What you're looking at here is The Death of Captain Marvel by Jim Starlin. This is a graphic novel. It is from 1982, and this graphic novel is very interesting for a few different reasons. For starters, it says it's the death of Captain Marvel, and it is the death of Captain Marvel. Unlike every other character in the Marvel universe or in just DC anywhere, comic characters don't die permanently. This one has. So I find really interesting that they've never really brought him back. I know that he sort of appeared in a modern Captain Marvel, Miss Marvel crossover thingy. I didn't read it, but I know that it happened, but it was like, it wasn't actually him. So, you know, he's still dead. Unlike everybody else, like Spider-Man's died like 10 times, and like Jean Grey has died like, I don't know, like 50 times. It's hard to even say. Just in the recent X-Men books, Moira McTaggart has died like 12 times. So that's one of the interesting parts about this, is that this is actually his end. His story comes to a conclusion. Another thing that I find really interesting about this book is that it's an introspection. He knows that he's going to die, and we're going to get into that in a second. It's very different, you know, from a situation where a superhero is getting ready for battle, and they're going to, you know, risk their lives, and they know that they can die. This is a very different situation. He knows he's gonna die, and he's taking, you know, he's talking about it, he's, you know, dealing with it, accepting it, things like that. Other thing that makes this a cool book to read is, if you've never read a Captain Marvel book before, you don't have to, because inside here, as he's dying, you'll see what I mean, he kind of tells his own story. So let's open her up here. So this was done by, like I said, Jim Starlin. He did the writing and the pencils. The color was done by Steve Oliff and lettered by James Novak. So it's The Death of Captain Marvel. So, you know, like I said, it starts off with him. He's making this journal. He's making this journal that he's recording. It's an autobiography that he's going to leave behind. He's basically recording it for the Avengers. What I find funny about this opening page here is that the device that he's talking into has a cord that's attached to the machine. But hey, I guess, back then that's what telephones looked like, so it is what it is, right? And so he talks about all of his, exploits throughout his life, and how he met Una, who was his first love, and, that they were enemies at first, but he brought her over to his point of view. Various different battles. Unfortunately, Una died in the process. Those sorts of things. He talks about how by a being named Eon, who granted him the power of cosmic awareness, which is I like the power of cosmic awareness for Captain Marvel. I think it's pretty cool. So, like I said, he's just sort of going over his exploits, telling his story. And so the ship that he's on, that he's recording this message, is headed towards Titan, where he lives. he's on the ship with Mentor and Eros, and what they're actually doing is they are transporting the rock-encased dead Thanos here, Eros' son. So you could see that's probably pretty difficult for him, but we all know how much of a bad guy that Thanos is. And you can see here as they're on their way back to Titan, Captain Marvel has the cosmic awareness hits him, and he realizes that, you know, there's trouble coming. And so he lets the others know that there's trouble coming, and what it actually is it's the children of Thanos are coming to try to, you know, get his body to potentially resurrect it, that sort of thing. But between Mentor, Captain Marvel, and Eros, they pretty much lay waste to these guys in pretty short order. And here you can see how they're talking about how, you know, he said, one of Thanos' children says that, for he is the master and is not omnipotent, he shall return. The day of the blood and glory will at last be upon us, so we await his resurrection. Oh, don't we know that's the truth, hey? After the battle there is over and they've gotten the information that they needed, you can see here that Mar-Vell starts to get, he's very weak afterwards, and Eros and Mentor are very concerned, and, you know, basically, they ask if they can help him, if there's anything that they can do to help him, and he says no, but I'm afraid Isaac will only be able to confirm what I already suspect, Isaac being their medical person there on Titan. They ask what he means. He says, you forget what my power is. He uses his cosmic awareness, and he can sense what's going on in his body. So he knows that there's something wrong. He knows that he's sick. They think that maybe the medical center on Titan can save him, but he doubts it. Once they're back on Titan, they do go to Isaac's medical lab. They do their analysis and diagnosis, and what he comes up with is that what they call on Titan inner decay, but Mar-Vell is Kree, and the Kree call it the Black End, but Earth people call it cancer. So now we know that that is what Captain Marvel is dealing with. He knows that he has cancer. He even talks about how his the wristlets that he wears with the photonic power have kept the cancer off, have fought it away, but the remission period is over, and the disease is taking over his body. And so there's a little back and forth about if they can help him or not. He knows that there's nothing that they can do. He's been keeping this a secret. He's even been keeping it a secret from his lover Elysius. And, you know, he has to go and tell her. And so this is one of where I think Starlin did just an absolutely fantastic job here. You have this page that has no words on it, but you don't need any words on this page to understand what's going on. And, you know, obviously he's here telling her that he has cancer, and then she's trying to console him. Then he goes back to his tape recorder, and he starts talking about his life, explains how he was tricked into turning to Kree capital to the Kree capital, and then seeing the Supreme Intelligence, who was sort of teleported to the negative zone, which was not good for him. So he, was in the negative zone for a while, until on Earth, Rick Jones finds a set of Kree bands, wristbands. They call them Niga bands, I think. And he puts them on, and they find out that when he does that together, they switch places, which is what you can see here. So this allowed Captain Marvel to, be an Earth hero, join the Avengers when they needed to, but unfortunately it displaced Rick into the negative zone during those times. And he's just thinking about all of the different foes that he's had over his life. Some of them are now friends. It's probably these guys. He's just talking about how that worked. And then, his biggest foe, of course, being Thanos. And, that Thanos is always on his quest for death and to serve death because he's in love with the mistress Death. That sort of thing. And, he's also lamenting how, in defeating Thanos, how Adam Warlock had died. But Adam Warlock does come back to life eventually. And, how Thanos was just this unbelievable force, how it took, nearly all of the Avengers to stop him. And then he makes it also comment how shortly after then he managed to find a way to escape the negative zone, so he didn't have to have Rick be transposed into the negative zone, and he could be on Earth and be a full-time warrior defending the Earth. Even though he is terminally ill and is getting sicker by the moment, Captain Marvel decides he needs to go to Earth because he needs to see Rick. He needs to tell Rick what's going on. He needs to tell him that he has cancer because of that connection that they had. It was a symbiotic relationship. There's a possibility that the disease could have passed on to him, and he wants to bring him in for testing. Into Titan for testing, I should say. So for a couple pages, Rick and Marvel argue about it. Rick's upset that he's just accepted the fact that he's gonna die, and that he's not trying to save his own life. He's not doing whatever he can. Rick sort of storms off. Captain Marvel comes back to, Titan, where he's there with his lady, and she's basically reminding him that he was an orphan, and that, his parents died, and he was also partners with the Hulk and Captain America at one point. Those things didn't work out for him either. And then, so we see Rick has come here to the Avengers to try to get them to find a cure for cancer type thing. And it's kind of interesting, too, here, just some of the comments, from Iron Man. I don't think you understand the complexities of cancer research. This is a problem hundreds of research scientists have been working on for decades. Hank or Beast says it's true, we're good at what we do, but cancer research is something completely new to us. What I think Beast is trying to say is don't expect any miracles. After all, we're only human, at least most of us are. And he's like, okay, you guys get it. You guys don't want to help. You can't do it. He's upset by all of this, as you might imagine. I think it's really interesting in this panel here where they're talking about it, all of the Avengers, and they say, why haven't we used our genius abilities and powers to stamp out this dreaded killer before this? I just think that's a really interesting thing that to include there. Little bit of writing there saying, you know, like, all these people, they're so good at all these things. They create these things, they invent things, they're amazing in all sorts of ways, have all sorts of powers, but they've never actually used their powers to try to tackle something like cancer. And of course, news spreads fast, so you know, you can see various different people from around the galaxy having different reactions. Obviously, the supreme intelligence for the Kree it's a joyous triumph. You get restrained passivity from the Watcher. You get to others, he was a comrade from the Inhumans. But everybody feels the loss, and that's from the Defenders. So that's I think that's really interesting. And of course, he's with Isaac, and he's like trying to say, like, many places in the galaxy have tried to defeat cancer and haven't done it yet, but they're gonna do everything they can. Mar-Vell, at this point, he's taken off his uniform. He makes the comment that, you know, it doesn't even, he can barely even fill it out anymore. He's losing weight, and, you know, headed in the wrong direction. Here Mar-Vell's talking to Eros, and he's telling him, you know, how that Elysius was the enemy that he learned to love, that she was actually sent by Thanos to kill him, but that he was able to convince her that he should join forces with her instead. Things are getting worse for him. You can see he's got the pain in his stomach, he's got the pain in his head. He says the pain comes and goes, so you know that matters are getting much worse for Mar-Vell here. Although sick, Mar-Vell can still get angry at the situation and cause some damage. You know, he's basically saying he's survived so much. How can this be what takes him out? And then we have now Reed Richards has joined the fray, as well as Doctor Strange, and they're talking about how the issue is the Niga bands, that they were both saving him. They were both stopping the cancer from spreading initially, but now they are basically spreading it. And, you know, if they take off these bands, then he'll die in a few hours, but taking off the bands is the only way to actually have a chance at saving him, and they don't even know if that's possible anyway. After collapsing, Mar-Vell is, you know, then from that point bedridden, and you can see that the end is definitely near. And at about this is at about the same time where you can see that pretty much most of the heroes of the Marvel Universe have come to, you know, pay their respects. You've got everybody from Captain America to the Hulk, the Thing, Spidey, Nightcrawler, Colossus, Scarlet Witch, Vision, you know, everybody. They're all here. And, you know, they all want to come and say goodbye to him. Here he's with Elysius, and she's basically telling him, you know, that she wants to, you know, cherish every last moment that she has with him. Then Eros comes in and says he has some visitors from Earth, he says, that sort of, you know, props him up. And here you just get the little thing where they see they've they've failed. They're not going to be able to save him. But they do go and they visit him. You know, they go and each of them pay their respects. And you can see here, they're talking about the situation. The superheroes here are just talking about, how is this happening? How, basically the same thing that Marvel did earlier in the book was that, how are we managing how am I dying from this and not from facing Thanos or something like that? So as the Thing is having his moment with Marvel, Rick shows up, so they decide to give them some space. And then, more visitors, Drax and Moondragon come. And then, but this is what I thought was really cool and really neat. How they have a Skrull come to pay his respects. And he says it too here. He says, "We Skrulls are a martial race and have long respected your skills, deeds, and courage, even though you are our foe." So I think that that's pretty cool that even his enemies are coming to pay respect to him because of how skilled he was. Over the next couple of pages, it's just sort of everybody visiting him and, saying their goodbyes and how much they love him and all of that. And then, unfortunately, he falls into a coma at midnight. Everybody's there at the bedside. Things are not looking good. Eros says it's just unfair. So unfair, so unfair. So he's lying there in coma, and it looks as though he's turning into Thanos, or it looks as though something's about to happen. And then we see the statue of Thanos that's in some basement somewhere there on Titan, and he has broken free, and that he has come and he's gonna end Marvel, but he's disgusted at the fact that Marvel is weak. So what he does is he basically gives him all of his power back. As we can see here, he says, "I'm whole again." And he wants to know why Thanos has done this. Thanos says that he, a warrior like him deserves an honorable death, and he's gonna give it to him. And so, they go into this area where they're going to have their little fight. They fight for a little bit. Thanos is jumping through dimensions, I don't know, very weird stuff. There's also some mystical stuff going on here that makes you think that maybe not everything is above board here. Thanos says here, for life itself, if not but for the first step to eternity, it gets its tone. Your time is spent, your fate is cast, so it begins the end. And then, so he's basically saying all of his foes are returning from the grave to attack him. So you can see a regenerated Marvel just up. He's already killed these people, so he just lays waste to them again. Same thing here. He's just taking out all of his old enemies. And, Thanos is just sort of watching. And then once he's defeated them all, Thanos sort of starts to disappear through this wall. And Marvel chases after him, breaking through the wall. And then, he says here, he's realizes that this is illusions. That this isn't, what he's seeing isn't real. And then, so Thanos tells him basically, it's time for you to die. And the Mistress of Death is there, and he says, Mar-Vell says, okay, he accepts it. He says, it's just that I no longer need the illusion. And then Thanos says, and so it ends. So Lady Death gives him a kiss, and then his heart slowly stops beating. You can see here that he said, is that it? It's just a kiss. And they're like, no, you have to take her hand. And then here Thanos says, she will lead us on our journey. She will show us that this is not the end. It's only the beginning. And then, of course, we realize that that was, of course, just a dream. They turn off the life support machines, and Captain Marvel is gone. And then on the back cover, I think it's really cool that they have, his, like, gravestone and everybody standing around it like it's a funeral type thing. Like I said, I really, really like this graphic novel for those reasons I said. That you have a guy who knows he's gonna die, and we have him introspective about it, and, like, having him talking to his loved ones and friends about it. It's something very unique and very different than you're gonna see in a comic. Also like that because of the way he is recording his memoirs. You don't need to know anything about Captain Marvel to read this and enjoy it. Thoroughly enjoy this book. Definitely, if you find it anywhere, I would pick it up and read it. I have the third printing of it, so it's pretty much worthless, like $5 or $10, something like that. If you had a first printing, it's probably worth, not worth picking up just to read. But if you could find a second or third or whatever printing after that, I would definitely give it a try. So this has been The Death of Captain Marvel, another classic comic review here on the Son of the Morning Comics channel. If you liked this video, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, leave some comments down below, hit that little notification bell, and if you want to chat, you can head over to Twitter. The handle is @SonOfTheMorning7. Have yourself a nice day.